Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. This is the Next Reel, everybody. I'm Pete Wright, and that right there is Andy Nelson.
Hello!
And we spoil movies. Tonight on the show, it's our first 2017 Listener's Choice film. This week, Pony Prize winner Finn Frode brings us the 1971 Swedish epic, The Emigrants. No, it's not. The Emigrants. I can't even read it straight. Emigrants or immigrants. Before we get into that, you should learn more about us at thenextreel.com. Subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast app or follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Next Reel. And we don't have a blot spot. Friend of the show, Ben Lott, has not made it out to theaters yet to see last week's movie. That's on us for choosing a current release film. But we do have some follow-up elsewhere on the interwebs.
That's right. Nick Langdon wrote in over on Facebook about Hero. He had some great comments, lots of great thoughts on the film. Noticed something about Kurosawa. We obviously had mentioned Rashomon as something that there's a nice parallel there, but he said he noticed some other Kurosawa parallels, mostly in the way Zhang used both weather, especially wind and rain, as well as the reaction of large groups. He not only deploys his People's Liberation Army extras for large-scale battle scenes, but in the calligraphy school and with the king's advisors having dozens of people reacting lent extra emotional weight to that particular moment in the story. And Nick also pointed out something about the fight scenes that I thought was pretty interesting. He says, a thought occurs about the fight scenes. By the end, we understand that only the ones in the third act actually took place. Aside from the green-hued one where Broken Sword and Flying Snow attacked the Qin capital, the others are white in color and are also mostly quite realistic in their choreography. This is in contrast to the more fantastical fights described first by Nameless and then by the king when he calls out Nameless for his fictional tale. So therefore, the extravagant wire fu and the bright primary colors originate in the idealized or augmented vision of reality, the tales that grow taller in the telling.
Oh, that's a great observation.
Yeah, I really want to go back and watch it again to really pay attention to those colors and when it becomes white or becomes less extravagant, to see exactly how that plays into reality versus the fictionalized storytelling.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. That's a great observation. Thank you, Nick. With that, Andy, it's time. Let's do trailers. I don't know. I thought I had something this week. I thought I had a trailer that was weird enough, but then I saw yours. I feel like I'm not even really showing up to the game.
Oh, I dug, man. I dug.
You dug so deep. You dug so deep. I don't know. I'm going to go first just so I can get it out of the way. I got to get it off my chest.
Do it.
I went with the film Bright. Bright. It's Will Smith's new thing, written by first by Max Landis and then rewritten by David Ayer, and it stars Will Smith and Noomi Rapace and Lucy Fry and other people. And the whole reason I picked it, the character list is Edgerton as Nick Jacoby, the first orc cop, and I thought, okay, I'll see that movie. So I got very excited about this. I don't really understand it. It is described as, quote, a contemporary cop thriller, but with fantastical elements. That could mean anything. The trailer's bananas. In fact, there are orcs and cops, and Max Landis has kind of an eye and an ear for these things. The other piece is, this continues our thread on the craziness that is embedding itself in Netflix distribution deals. This is another Netflix thing. They picked it up for $90 million, and it comes out to come out later this year. What do you think? How did the trailer hit you? Seems like vanilla pudding compared to your trailer this week. So,
well, it's hard to say because it really is just a teaser. I mean, it's like a 30-second TV commercial, really. But watching it during the Oscars really intrigued me. It looked like something that was going to be a thrill. The fact that Netflix has it just brought to mind all the great comic book shows that they have there, and this just kind of seems like something like that. It has a really interesting vibe, some interesting characters. I'd like to see Will Smith return to form and do some more great stuff. I really do think he's just got an amazing presence. I just don't feel like he's been hitting it out of the park for a while, and I think that this looks just crazy. And I didn't. It starts so normally in the trailer, and then it builds, and you start seeing you see a quick shot of the orc. You see, I don't know what Rooney or not. Is it Rooney Mara?
Noomi Rapace.
Noomi Rapace. Yeah, I'm getting my girls with the dragon tattoos mixed up.
Yes.
Noomi, I don't know, she's like a witch woman or something. It looks like a really interesting blend of fantasy and modern cop storytelling. So color me curious.
I will color you exactly that, Andy. This one, it comes out in December. It should hit Netflix in December. I can't help but think that we're at some sort of a pivot point, right? An inflection point with Netflix, that these big money deals that they've been making to be exclusive distributors of some bigger named properties, I wonder what the impact is of that is going to be. These investments, they better pay off, but it's going to be really hard to tell how they pay off without a box office, right? I mean, they tend to be very tight-lipped about the kind of data that we can get from their service. Right? I mean, do you have any way to judge how an original Netflix or Hulu exclusive performs?
I've never seen like a something like a Nielsen sort of thing that has been developed that has started pumping that sort of information out. I would love that.
Even subscriber numbers is going to be like a trailing quarterly thing, right? They don't report that every time. I think they report that during earnings season, but I'm not even sure. So I just think it's going to be really telling, because I wonder if people are going to, if a large number of people are going to be browsing Netflix late at night looking for something to watch, and they find a Will Smith movie and it's a generic Will Smith movie. It could be just another Will Smith movie with orcs on Netflix, because I tend to go to Netflix for movies with orcs. You know what I mean? Like, how well are they going to be able to let these things stand out? And they're cultivating a really interesting slate for the rest of this year. I hope that it is. I hope that their promotions live up to it.
Hey, if it's a show that has the FBI having a magic division, I'm all for it.
True that. Well, and, Brad William Henke plays Dorku, the imposing and scary leader of the Fogteeth Orcs gang. Well, I'm in. What's yours?
Mine is a Russian film called The Bride. And, I've got to say, this is just a really wacky, crazy looking trailer that seems to almost be a few different trailers all kind of cut together. I don't fully understand exactly what's going on with this wacky trailer. It's directed by Sviatoslav Podjayevsky. I don't know much about Sviatoslav, but it looks really crazy. If you look at his directing portfolio, he's definitely done things that sound like big kind of effect sorts of things. Some shorts called like Non-Human and Intimates, and then a feature called Queen of Spades, The Dark Right, and now The Bride, and he's got some other ones coming out, New World and The Envelope. It looks like a very interesting director who's doing some of these kind of really creepy horror things that have unfortunately, a lot of the tropes that we see a lot now where, it's kind of like doing the Exorcist spider walk, and, you've got the creepy head turning or the eyes opening and it's just white eyes underneath. And there's a lot of those sorts of things all through this trailer. I don't know if it looks good, but it looks wacky and it looks creepy. Maybe not to the extent of the mermaid. The Swiss mermaid movie that you picked a few weeks ago?
Turns out mermaids are bad.
Yes, indeed. But this does have an interesting look, and I think it has a sense from the trailer that there's this element of kind of based on some of the kind of the old things, like just kind of the histories of the way that people used to take photos of their dead relatives and stuff like that. I mean, that element is super creepy, but then you get this photographer at the beginning taking photos of this bride whose head keeps falling down and her eyes are painted on her eyelids. And then, of course, she opens them. It's all scary and stuff, but it probably is going to be horrible, but the trailer looked really cool. What did you think?
I don't know, man. Well, predictably, I wasn't crazy about it. I think you're right. I think the story is in the first minute and a half of the trailer. I was super compelled by just the whole concept of taking pictures of dead relatives at the dawn of photography. I thought that was a fascinating story with so much great kind of creepiness built into it. And then it just comes completely off the rails in this 4.5 minute trailer that becomes so many different movies that I'm not sure what to make of it. It's both. It takes place both in history and contemporary sort of society, and that's where the horror is. The ghost comes back through time. But man, the spider walk and all of that stuff, I was just, I didn't, as you could probably imagine, I didn't really connect with it after that first jump scare when she opens her eyes. That was enough.
Yeah. All right. No, there's some good creepy stuff in here. I've got to read this.
Creepy, yeah.
This is the plot summary that you can find on IMDb and also partially on Wikipedia. It's pretty funny just to read because one, it's just not written very bad, and two, the story sounds so strange. Nastya is a young woman who travels with her soon-to-be husband to his family home. Upon their arrival, she can't help but think that the visit may have been a horrible mistake. She is surrounded by strange people and starts witnessing strange, terrible visions as his family prepares her for a mysterious traditional Slavic wedding ceremony. More than the wedding preparations, can she survive the next few days?
That's not the trailer.
I like this. This is from Wikipedia. Young girl Nastya with her lover went to meet with his family in his house, but being in this house, she questioned her decision. Many frights occur because of Liza's love for her brother.
Oh God.
That's almost more fun than talking about the movie, is just reading really bad plot synopses. Oh, well. Well, this one, it already opened in Russia and Estonia in January. No release dates yet for the U.S., so who knows? Maybe we'll never get a chance to see this wonderful film, but there you go.
Oh, you'll see it. We shall see it. I'm sure it will be seen. Andy, no one can walk on foot to America. Not on any conditions. America is an island.
Another bit of herring.
Here's some bread. You can't eat only herring. It's good.
Yeah.
The Emigrants, Andy, 1971. The film was released in Sweden, 1972 in the United States. It was directed by Jan Troell and written by Jan Troell and edited by Jan Troell. It stars Max von Sydow and Liv Ullmann and Eddie Axberg and Pierre Lindstedt and many other people whose names I will butcher throughout the course of the evening tonight. This film comes to us by way of @Fegfi on Instagram, Finn Frode from Norway. He won the great contest last year, and this is his shot at the listener's choice. So he chose The Emigrants. It is not a Norwegian film. It is a Swedish film, but that's okay. And he's going to tell us all about it tonight. Now, usually when we do these listener's choice episodes, the winner joins us on the show. But Finn did not want to join us on the show, but he did instead write us a beautiful 2-page essay on why he selected this film for our conversation tonight. And we loved it so much that we've decided to actually bring in an actor to play the role of Finn for our purposes this evening. So anytime you hear lilting pastoral music and the voice of our very own Tommy Handsome, you'll know that you're actually hearing Finn Frode's thoughts on The Emigrants. What do you think, Andy? Can we pull this off?
You bet. I mean, maybe. I was trying to be more positive.
That did not communicate positive. Anyway,
sure.
Go back to your hole of despair. Here we go. Let's toss it to our man Finn to talk to us a little bit about why he chose The Emigrants.
Thanks to one of my favorite pastimes, I guess the movie challenge, I am the lucky picker for the first listener's choice this year. And being from Norway, I thought I should pick a Norwegian movie, but I don't think the interesting ones are available outside Norway or in English. So I soon settled on a movie with one of our 2 actresses with some success in Hollywood. The biggest Norwegian star ever is, of course, Sonja Henie. So big that even Donald went to a skating rink to get her autograph. I am, of course, talking about Donald Duck in the 1939 film, The Autograph Hound. However, while it might be a lot of fun to watch a Golden Age figure skating movie, I have instead chosen another path: migration. Migration is a hot topic here in Europe nowadays. I have heard it's the same in America and other parts of our world also. So the 1971 Swedish grand epic The Emigrants should be a timely pick. The movie was directed by Jan Troell, based on the 2 first emigrant books of the Swedish writer Vilhelm Moberg, called The Emigrants and The Immigrants, directly translated from Swedish. The novels were released in 1949 and 1952, with 2 more volumes released in 56 and 59. The books soon became very popular and sold 2 million copies in Sweden, and they have been translated to more than 20 languages. In 1995, the two Bs in ABBA, Bjorn Elveus and Benny Andersson, made a musical version, Christina from Duvmala, with no less than 40 musical numbers. The Emigrants follows a group of poor Swedish farmers, farmhands, and religious outcasts in the mid-1800s. Their hardship brings them to emigrate to America, but will their hardship come to an end there? From around 1850 to 1920, 1.5 million Swedes emigrated out of a population of just over 4 million, mostly to North America. From Norway, which was in a union under the Swedish crown from 1814 to 1905, around 800,000 of a population of a little over 1.5 million emigrated in the same period. Around 20 to 25% returned to their homelands after a while.
This is it's actually an amazing story, Andy. The Emigrants, right? I found myself, I just watched it last night. It is a powerfully human film, right? It documents moments in these lives that are relatively small, like these small sort of intimate farm lives, but they're dramatic in their own way, right? We get birth, we get death, we get starvation and disease and loss, and it's all at a very sort of intimately human scale. How did it hit you as you were watching it?
Pretty much the same. I mean, I really was drawn into just the day-to-day, the redundancy, the pain, the suffering, the difficulty. Man, did I just get a sense of how hard it was to live at this particular time. And man, were they just always picking rocks up or what? Jeez. I mean, their medicine was terrible. They had no idea of birth control. It was just terrible. Like, it was such a difficult time. And then to go through this whole thing where you're trying your hardest, you're trying so hard to be a farmer and nothing's going right because the weather is just crap. And
then lightning strikes your barn.
Right. It's like, and then you smite God. It's like, let's voyage across the sea to this great new world. And boy, does that journey suck. Bubonic plague and seasickness and just, lice and just everything else. I mean, it was just a horrible, horrible experience. And that's the sense of the detail of just kind of what it was like in the 1850s to be a Swedish person in a small town who decides to make this change in their life and what it could mean. And by the time you get to the end of the film and you see that final moment with Karl Oskar just sitting there with that smile on his face, it's like, what a wash of relief you have come over you. And I can only imagine what waits in store in the next film, because this is kind of this double feature that they shot paired together, The Immigrants and The New Land. I imagine it's not just all a hunky-dory now that they've found their new chunk of land.
Right. That was my sense. When I got to the end of the movie, well, I felt that feeling of like relief, right? He made it he got his family there. But I found myself, I find it hard to be super critical of the film because it tells a story that I would have been, I would have been the guy crushed by the boulder, right? Early on, I would have just said, do you have any bears? Because I'd like to just go end it. I'm not built for this. I'd like to hope that, there's something in my genetic catalog that would allow me to kind of flip a bit and be able to handle that kind of lifestyle. I can't consciously reach into that. So I would have been done. And yet I found myself finding these mega long sequences and rather loose framing and cinematography, it pretty tiresome. I was fatigued watching this film and not bored, but really fatigued. Like it was a lot. It was very heavy. And each of the major sequences, right? We have the major sequence at the beginning where they're farming and everything's failing. And the younger brother is on the lam running from the law, which is really polite. The law was an incredibly polite element in this film, which surprised me a little bit. And then we have them journeying down to the boat and to the boat trip, and then we have them trying to find their new property. Those are kind of the major three sections. I don't know if I missed something big in there, but that's kind of what it felt like to me. And all of those, it felt sort of small and fatiguing until I got to the end and realized just how far this family had come from the beginning 3 hours ago. They came a long way. And yet the movie made it feel like they didn't really go that far.
I don't know. I felt like I felt like a lot happened. I mean, you really do move quite a bit, and I certainly got a sense of the journey, and certainly got a sense of the fatigue. I mean, there definitely is that. I mean, there's so many. Just you're right up in there in close shots with these actors as they're going through all these different situations that you really feel like you're right there with them, and it is exhausting.
On the boat, she was super sick, and she leans over and puts her hand on the side of the boat. Was that somebody on the bunk above her vomiting down the wall that she sticks her hand in? Because that grossed me out. That was a really horrible. I mean, they painted the picture of the emigrant boat in the very worst possible way. Like that was awful.
Well, that's all I could think of when the brother throws up on the stairs. Is like somebody's bed is probably right under those stairs, and he's just throwing up right on top of them.
Right on top of it.
And they're just horrible. Like, yeah, here it goes again. Oh, yeah. No, it's, this film is based off of, there's a novel series called the Emigrants series, written by Vilhelm Moberg. And this film is based on the first two novels, The Immigrants and Unto a Good Land. And the second film, The New Land, is actually based on the last two of the books in this 4-book series. But this series of books is incredibly important in Swedish culture. It's considered generally to be among the best pieces of Swedish literature. They have a statue of these characters. I mean, it's kind of a big thing, and I think it represents just kind of some of the struggles and the difficulties that some of these people have gone through, and I think it's a very interesting look at the lives, and it is a difficult, just a troubling journey that these people take. But I think it's one of these decisions that people make in their lives where they're like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to make this change to, hopefully make things better. Not everything turns out better for everybody. I mean, some of these characters die along the journey that we're traveling with. But, we're kind of going along hoping that, at least let our husband and wife protagonists make it through. And, they do, despite losing, kids and everything else. I mean, it's a very difficult journey, but
they lose one and they find another. Right there is a sequence when they're waiting to get on the boat and they think one of their children has run off in the woods, and they're going to have to leave that child there because they're trying to make it to the new land or up the river, but they end up finding the child, and that was one of those little teases. Like I found myself dramatically kind of hoping that they'd lost the child. I wanted to see that Sophie's Choice, and then they found the child. So I was a little bit frustrated by that. I found that was one of those sort of human level crises that I wanted to see played out a different way.
I felt like I've seen enough of that in the film. I mean, their other daughter overeats and they don't know what to do, so she just dies of bloating. It's just
Gotta be careful of the porridge. Please be careful of the porridge.
Man. Jeez.
Oh yeah, it was tough. Shall we hear what Finn has to say about the script?
Let's.
Soon, interest in filming the books became a topic. Rumor has it that Jan Troell was one of those who wanted to adapt the books. But for Arthur Moberg, this was no topic at all. That was until he saw Jan Troell's Here Is Your Life in 1966. Now he had found the only director he thought could do his material justice. And he told this to the press. Jan Troell, which had not read the books at the time, read Moberg's statements in the paper and started his work. Together with producer Bengst Forslund, he wrote the scripts for 2 movies and started casting.
I think it's interesting that we've got Jan Troell. We didn't really say this up front, but this guy, when you look at his catalog, he really is a one-man movie-making machine. Now, I know other people were involved. I mean, I saw them on film, but the guy co-wrote the script, adapted the script, directed and cut and shot the film. That's a lot of weight for what was originally released as a 3-hour and 11-minute movie, and this is just part one.
Right? Yeah, it's quite a lot of work that he puts into this. I don't know if he does with all of his stuff. I mean, he's a filmmaker who's been doing stuff since 1960.
Well, I looked at it down the line. It's like 24, 25 out of his 28 credits. He's credited as all 3 roles.
He is. You're right. I'm kind of scrolling down now. So he really likes to do a little bit of everything, and he clearly has a sense of control. He knows what he wants, and he pushes to get it. So it's very interesting that he does. But I mean, man, he's still. Well, I shouldn't say he's still working. It doesn't look like he's done anything since 2012. But I mean, he is a filmmaker who's done a lot of projects, and has been keeping very busy. It looks like he's really shifted into documentary work for the most part since the late 80s, although throwing in a few features here and there. His last film was a feature called The Last Sentence, which why do I feel like I heard of that? Did you hear about that one?
No, I have no memory of it.
I was feeling like maybe it was nominated for Best Foreign Language Film, but maybe I'm wrong.
What do you think about how he and Bengt Forslund constructed the screenplay?
I think that it's I mean, I haven't read the books, but I get it's really interesting how they take this epic journey of these different people as they go on this journey, and you get bits and pieces of their lives, but the script does not give you a lot of heads up on how things are moving and shifting, and you really have to just kind of grab on and hold on tight and make sure you're paying attention, because things just change and shift a lot. And sometimes you're in a situation like you have a situation where at the beginning of the film you have a dinner scene with the dad and his 2 sons, Max von Sydow and the other brother. I'm forgetting his name right now. I think it's Eddie Axberg as Robert. And they're talking about, Dad is talking about how he wishes that Robert would get a job. All of a sudden, we cut, and now we're with Robert and this friend of his, Arvid, played by Pierre Lindstedt, and they are bunking together at this job. And all of a sudden, like, we've jumped forward in time. And Robert's got a job. He's a farmhand now, and he's trying to get to know Arvid, his bunkmate, while they deal with working at this farm. But it's like, it doesn't give you a lot of leeway. You just have to kind of grab and hold on and really kind of just start picking at little pieces so that you can figure out exactly what's going on. It does this quite a bit throughout the film, particularly in the beginning as it moves forward, and you just have to trust that you're going to land with it as it gets where it's going. That to me is a really interesting way of storytelling, where they don't give you a lot of help, but I think that it's as long as you're paying attention, I do think that it's actually pretty effective story construction, because it helps get a lot of stuff told in a pretty short period of time.
I think so too. I think that also adds to the sort of the cognitive fatigue that you get watching this, because you really have to pay attention, as you say, particularly in the first part of the movie. Once you get into it, once you figure out who these people are and how they relate to one another, I think it's made particularly difficult because as an older film, the transfer is not great, the audio is not great. It's dubbed, at least the version. I don't know. Did you watch it subtitled somehow?
On Amazon, yeah.
Oh, see, I watched it. The iTunes version was dubbed, very frustrating, and so it is what it is. But it was tough to hear, and I feel like I missed, as you usually do when you watch something dubbed. I feel like I missed probably 10% of the movie.
Ah, that's too bad. And what's frustrating is Criterion has a nice new release out there, but for some reason it's not accessible via like Netflix. You can't rent the discs from Netflix. I don't really know what that's all about. So it's more difficult to get this one unless you're just willing to purchase it or watch it on, I guess, Criterion's new channel. One other bit about story construction, though, I thought was interesting is for a film called The Emigrants, it's interesting how the story also doesn't really give you a sense of the direction it's going. I mean, obviously we know where it's going from the title, but you don't even hear about North America until about a half hour into the film. And I thought that was just a really interesting way to construct this story, where it's just this nugget that ends up popping in pretty late in the first act. So it's, I liked that about the way that the story's told, I guess.
I did too, and not to belabor the fatiguing part, but the thing that sort of comes to me at the end of the film is the reward. The kind of celebration that we are along with the ride with Max and family, that they made a decision in a time and place that absolutely upended everybody. I mean, it's not like, today I think I might move to another city, and first I better give notice, but I'm going to give notice with a healthy safety net because, I don't want to be out of work. So then I'm going to start looking for a job, and I only want to move once I have a job and know kind of where I'm going to live. These people left their farm with nothing, no plan, no nothing. And they got on a boat for an indeterminate length of time, and they landed somewhere. Like, that is an experience that I think he captured really well in terms of the construction of the narrative in the screenplay, so that when I hit the end of that film, that relief is well earned.
I completely agree with you. It was really, you really get a sense that this is what it was like going through that, right? It's pretty trying in the best way, in the best possible way.
I think things get a little bit sloppy for me when I look at Jan Troell as a director and cinematographer. I feel like I have to talk about those things together. I did not like the way he used the camera. I found it super distracting, disconnected almost, like it took me away from the story I wanted to see rather than put me enough in it.
I ended up liking it. It reminded me a bit of Terrence Malick, where the camera would kind of go on almost like these little journeys of the mind, where it's very internal imagery that I liked quite a bit. I mean, there's a lot of beautiful shots of nature, a lot of really interesting still shots that we get throughout. I liked that sense of the world, sense of space, sense of time. But there's some really touching shots that do feel very much like intimate internal shots of people. The beautiful shots of the flowers in the glass that Liv Ullmann's character Christina would kind of put in there, and just that kind of, I got a sense that kind of the Terrence Malick sense from those shots, and it actually made me wonder if Terrence Malick was inspired by this film and kind of the way that Jan Troell told his stories, and kind of expanded on that in his own way of telling stories, to the point where I find them difficult to watch.
Well, I think the comparison to Terrence Malick is apt for me because I'm not crazy about much of Terrence Malick's stuff. I'm really not. I struggle with it.
I'm not either. I do too.
Right, and I think that's kind of the feeling that I got here, that the stuff that I didn't like was stuff I would absolutely put on the shoulders of Terrence Malick. I really like Voyage of Time, and so I think about this film pitched as a documentary, maybe I would have liked it more.
Well, and see, I think this is almost like Terrence Malick light, or Terrence Malick in an early stage. So I ended up liking this level of filmmaking. I liked the way that his camera captured moments. We got some interesting POV shots, and the perspectives changed throughout. Like, we got some POVs of Christina as she's in the swing, and we got some from Karl Oskar. I can't remember when, but I know we did. And Robert, we got various POVs and kind of went internal with various characters throughout the storytelling. And
Christina, when she was sick on the boat too, that was another great example. Yeah.
So I liked that he played with perspectives and he gave us those internal moments and the camera work. I found it all really captivating and strong. So it's one of those things where, depending on how you are as far as like Malick and Malick types of filmmaking, it could be something that really doesn't work for you. So I can see why you might find it a little more difficult to watch.
Let's talk first shot, last shot.
Yeah, the film starts, interestingly, it's over black with the titles and some text on the screen setting the scene for Sweden in the mid-1850s, including details about all the half-wits and idiots, all the people.
What's up with that?
I was like, who are they setting us up to meet here? I wasn't quite sure.
Right? They're the villagers, and then don't forget the whores and the idiots. Like, what?
But also the leaders, and I thought that was interesting, getting a sense of who actually leads these communities, because we certainly meet some of those in the first act of the film. But all of this is over sounds of nature, and paired with a sound of somebody working. You can't quite tell what it is until we start seeing images. We see grass and rocks, and after several shots, we see this wall. And somebody's actually working on it, adding more rocks to it. So that is the first shot of the film.
And the last shot after our man Max, Carl Oskar, carves his name into a tree, marking his territory in Minnesota. Relaxing with a smile on his face, we cut up to a flock of birds flying across the sky, and we end with this and the sounds of their calls. It's pastoral. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. And it's also about journeys and really about marking your spot in the world, right? I mean, building, we have them building their walls at the beginning and then marking the tree at the end. It's journeys of nature and beings. We have, the birds are on their own journey, and it's kind of like this whole trip that all of these different people take to find a place where they belong. And I liked it. I mean, I weirdly, I felt like I liked the wall building paired with the tree carving a little better. The bird shot kind of came in a little unexpectedly for me. I still liked it. I still liked kind of that journey that these birds are going on.
Well, and the representation of freedom that they, I mean, we end building a wall. Or we begin the film building a wall, and we end the film with freedom, right? That this is what this new world represents for us. It's the ability to grow in 3 feet of lush topsoil. It's the ability to create a homestead that we never were able to create in our homeland. And so, for me, it was really quite liberating. But this is also the first time I felt at the very end of the film that I'm operating at a deficit by not having seen the next film, because the big question that this leaves for me, this sort of emotional question, cliffhanger hanging at the end of this film is, was it worth it? And we don't get that answer in this film. And maybe that's a result of just knowing that there is another film that continues the story that I absolutely want to see now. But this did not feel like a last shot to me, and it felt like an ellipsis.
I think that's very well put. It's like an ellipsis, a pause before we get into the next section of the story.
Let's move into the cast. Our main man, Max von Sydow, plays Carl Oskar Nilsson. Why don't we start with words from Finn?
For the main lead, Carl Oskar, the choice was Max von Sydow, the greatest, quote, fantastic actor ever. Fantastic is in quotes, meaning not entirely realistic, like science fiction, fantasy, etc. His international break came from playing chess with Death himself in the ultimate art house, fantastic movie, The Seventh Seal, in 1957. He went on to roles like the world's most famous magician in The Greatest Story Ever Told. He has, of course, portrayed the devil as well. And roles in the following fantastic franchises: The Exorcist, Flash Gordon, Conan the Barbarian, James Bond, Dune, Ghostbusters, Indiana Jones, Rush Hour, The Wolfmen, Robin Hood, Star Wars, and Game of Thrones. Just mentioning franchises. And he is still working 60 years after his initial famous chess match. But in The Emigrants, it is not a, quote, fantastic movie. He had, of course, experience in those kind of movies too, for one thing, playing in a bunch of movies by Ingmar Bergman. And in 4 of those, he had played against the Norwegian actress Liv Ullmann.
What'd you think of Max in the film?
He's an actor that I always like. I mean, he's always great in everything that he does. And I haven't seen him in as many of his older films, more kind of the 80s and forward. But boy, do I enjoy watching him. He's got just incredible presence, and he really leads well this family. I think he's just very powerful. He goes through so many emotions, and just I think that he plays all of it really to perfection. I mean, he's so good in this film.
Makes me want to go watch Intacto again.
I was that's good. Weirdly, Minority Report is what popped into my head, but
Really?
yeah, isn't that funny? It's like
That's really funny.
a strange choice.
I love him in this film. I think he's really fantastic to watch because he's a giant, and because he just can't stop having the sex. My goodness, it is that's the greatest hardship of the film. Is this is really impossible for me to not have sex, and I thought that was I laugh about it, but that's a real tragedy in the 1850s. That is a really difficult thing, is the urge, and I think they together they really captured that. They nailed it.
Well, when your kids kind of keep falling like flies, I guess you almost have to, right?
Yeah, right.
Geez, it's just so frustrating the way things were back then. But yeah, it's very difficult.
What would Bill and Melinda Gates say? Their whole thing is about keeping people like Max von Sydow from having the sex in 1850. It's their whole mission. Liv Ullmann as Christina Nilsson. She's sort of the stoic. She's a bit of a surprising character, right? And I think you talk about how it's kind of hard. You have to pay attention in the first part of the film. She just sort of shows up.
She's just there again. Yeah, it's just all of a sudden. Oh, now she's in his life. And what was interesting about her character is, considering that she's one of our protagonists, she's the maternal side of this family. She doesn't have a word of dialogue in the film until they're already married. They already have 3 kids, and the 2 of them are in bed and they're kind of talking. And he says something, and then she replies, and that's the first time. And it's like it takes a while. I was 15-20 minutes or something like that before she actually speaks in the film. But I thought that was a really interesting way to go as far as not giving her much. I mean, she had plenty of acting to do, but she really felt like at the beginning she was just playing the what you'd kind of expect a wife to be in the 1850s.
Yeah, absolutely. She was exactly that, and she was at once terrifically frail, and you can see her developing that sort of strength as a result of her debilitating illness on the boat, and as she comes out of it, and I thought she was fascinating to watch. And again, she is another one of those characters that I feel like I will be even more intrigued by in the second film. Let's hear what Finn has to say.
Liv Ullmann made her domestic breakthrough not playing chess, but doing a jazzy striptease in a cabin in the 1959 movie Ung Flunkt, otherwise known as The Wayward Girl, by female director Edith Kalmar. In 1966, she played in Bergman's Persona, the first of many collaborations with him. Her female lead in The Emigrants as Christina became a stepping stone for her career as an actress in movies and on stage, and later as a director in both arenas. Her latest directorial outing was 2014's Miss Julie with Jessica Chastain and Colin Farrell. She has been nominated for 2 Oscars and won a Golden Globe for The Emigrants. The Norwegian and Swedish languages are close related, but significantly different, making it hard to speak the other language well. But the Swedes think that Liv Ullmann's excellent playing makes up for her strange Swedish tongue. Fun fact, one of the most famous Norwegians in Hollywood movies is of course the refugee Ilse Lund in Casablanca in 1942, played by a Swede, Ingrid Bergman. By the way, no one is called Ilse in Norway. That's not entirely true. There are exactly 6 people called Ilse in Norway. 11.187 is called Lund, so that's okay. Later, Liv Ullmann played the daughter of Ingrid Bergman in Autumn Sonata in 1978. Fun fact, it's the only movie ever filmed in my hometown of Mold. The writer, Linn Ullmann, who is Liv Ullmann and Ingmar Bergman's daughter, played Liv Ullmann's character's daughter in both The Emigrants and Autumn Sonata.
Do you know what's funny about Liv Ullmann, and I know he wanted to pick a Norwegian actress, and she's the reason that we're doing this. I have only seen her in a few films, and I think they've all Oh, no, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say I think they've all been Ingmar Bergman films. I think I've seen a few that weren't Ingmar Bergman films, but I have such a hard time with Ingmar Bergman films. And
Totally.
I'm really, I have to say, I know Persona was on Finn's list of choices of films that he might have wanted us to discuss. And I'm really glad we're not talking about that, because boy, do I have a difficult time with that film. But I do want to see some more stuff with Liv Ullmann. And I mean, she's very compelling to watch on screen. As somebody who, like I said earlier, she starts so passive as kind of the passive 1850s wife, but I think that her character carried a lot of interesting strength. And so I really enjoyed that. And like you said, I think that there's probably a lot to see with what's going to happen with her in the new land.
Eddie Axberg plays Robert Nilsson. He was the younger brother. He's the Flibberty Gibbet. I really liked him. I thought he was terrific, and much of the first act of the film really revolves around him. And he is, in fact, the character that inspires the great emigration. Right? It starts with him trying to get out of this bad relationship with this other farmer. He wants to go someplace where he can own his own destiny as a young man, and he's trying to strike out and not have to serve at the hand of this terrible boss. And so it's him that sort of secretively comes up with this plan, but then they realize they don't have the money to actually execute. So that's when he goes to his brother and says, "This is what I'm thinking about doing." I feel like he did a great job. I loved the kind of Hobbit-esque features of him, as he's walking down the road, and he's got the traditional wooden shoes, and he lets those float away in the river with his hat. I don't know what that was all about, but I loved it. Just his sort of connection with sort of needing freedom and needing that kind of liberation. I really appreciated.
He was a very interesting character, and I was really kind of drawn to him. And just story elements revolving around him, like the issue with his ear after he got hit, really kind of abusively by his worker. And not just tinnitus, but also just like, there's the blood in his ear and just things like, I wasn't sure if that was going to go somewhere farther in this particular film, but it does make me wonder if it does go farther in the new land, if his ear becomes a real sign of issues or something like that.
Yeah, right.
Really interesting character, and I liked the way that everything kind of evolved from the direction he was going, and like the conversations he had with the girl that he started liking on the boat, really revolving around him and his knowledge about English and America, as misplaced as some of it might have been. But he was he was a fascinating character, and it's interesting looking at him as an actor. Eddie Axberg has nearly as many credits. I shouldn't say that. I should say he actually has more credits in the sound department than he does as an actor. He's been working up through 2012, but he's also been doing sound through 2013 so far, and it looks like that's a huge part of his life, is doing sound, which I think is interesting considering the ear issues that he ended up having in this particular film.
Well, he was only acting.
He was, but like, what a strange twist. Hey, let's have you have hearing issues, Mr. Soundman.
We're going to give you an ironic career change. You're welcome.
He actually did the sound for this pair of films. So,
he did?
He did.
I did not see that. That's fantastic.
He was the sound mixer. I know. So funny.
Pierre Lindstedt played Arvid, his buddy. What's not to like about Arvid?
Strange little goofball. I liked this pair. I wasn't really sure where the relationship was going to go at the beginning, because I couldn't quite tell. Initially, I was like, is Arvid kind of aggressive with him? Is there going to be like issues between the two of them? But then it didn't go that way, and it all seemed fine. And I was like, oh, I totally misread this relationship. But again, that's because you're thrown into the story so quickly. It was hard to get a sense of what was happening. But in the end, it was great seeing him kind of take this journey with his buddy. So I another really interesting actor and somebody who's also been really busy. It looks like all of these people that we're talking about, they were all involved in this film, The Last Sentence, in 2012. So clearly that was a big film for them and for Sweden at this particular point in time.
A good reunion film. This was Sam and Frodo, right?
Totally.
That's who this is. We had Alan Edval as Daniel Andresen, who's Christina's Andreasen as Christina's uncle. He was the sort of the zealot, right? The religious zealot.
Right, yeah. Convinced he had his religion, he knew exactly what was right and wrong. And it's funny because I kind of bought into it when he was back in Sweden, and he was just kind of practicing his own thing. And I'm like, it sounds like the pastor was running things in a way that wasn't very good, and this guy made a lot more sense. But then once they started on the journey, I'm like, this guy is just bananas. As long as you're with the Lord, you'll never get seasick. I'm like, who does he think he is?
I know, it got worse. It got worse from there. And he ran into his own bit of crisis on the boat, and I thought that was I thought he played that well. I was really interested in how he was going to sort of relate, and it kind of gives you more of a sense, just his involvement in the film. It gives you more of a sense of the scale of the emigration, right? And just like Finn said early on, I mean, this was a massive emigration from Sweden, and it made it feel much more like we weren't just uprooting a family, we were uprooting a community. And so I really appreciate that community feel on the boat, and I think he was the anchor of that for me.
Well, and considering the pastor in town was such a kind of despicable character, it was really interesting seeing the conversation between the pastor and Karl Oskar when he came to kind of ask permission to leave, and just kind of the difficulty he had in convincing the pastor to let them go. And it's like, gosh, they have to ask for permission and all this stuff, and the guy's giving him nothing but grief about this thing. And you get a sense that this is a really disruptive thing, obviously, for all these people who take the trip. But back in Sweden, half the community disappears. That's like half of the workforce, half of the people who are growing the food and everything. They're all gone. It's like all of a sudden your community is drastically changed too.
Dramatically. Finn has this to say about Monica Zetterlund as Ulrika and Hans Alfredsson as Jonas Peter.
Monica Zetterlund as Ulrika. She was a world-class jazz singer, and those interested should check out her album with Bill Evans' trio, Waltz for Debbie, released in 1964. Among the other actors and actresses in The Immigrants, I can point out Hasse Alfredsson as Jonas Peter. He is a major Swedish actor and director, and the father of Daniel Alfredsson, director of 2009's The Girl Who Played with Fire, and Thomas Alfredsson, director of 2011's Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Music by Eric Nordgren. This music was wildly out of context for this film for me, Andy.
Me too.
Wildly.
It was like a horror film. It would get so intense and discordant. And I, to a certain extent, I understood the direction that they were taking with the music, because it's like, this is an upheaval in these people's lives. Like we've already said throughout this conversation, it is like a very, very difficult decision to make. You have no idea. It's all the unknown. I can get a sense why this intense, discordant music might be the way to go. But at the same time, it was a little added to the abuse, I thought.
It's really discordant. I don't think we can underscore how discordant it was. It was real trauma to these scenes. Even scenes of the farmland burning. The music made it a lot worse.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a horror movie.
It was a horror movie score. It almost felt like, Andy. It felt like music that had been dumped from some other project. You know what I mean? Like, I need an original score. Here's a movie that didn't get made. Unfortunately, it was a horror movie, but we're going to use it anyway. That's what the image I had in my head. I mean, I know that has happened from time to time. So
it was a strange choice. I can see why they went with it though. It was aggressive.
We've already talked about the New Land as the immediate sequel, but this story has been told a number of other times.
Yeah, it's interesting. It has been made a number of other times. Something else that I don't know if we mentioned, but this was actually filmed with the New Land together. They actually filmed both of these two movies back to back, kind of Lord of the Rings-esque. So it is kind of like that. It's funny that we were making those comparisons. But yes, in 1974, over here in the States, we had a TV series called The New Land that was based loosely on this and its sequel. It starred Scott Thomas, Bonnie Bedelia, and Kurt frickin' Russell. That's right.
That's awesome.
What was he doing back then? He was in this show. It was a very short-lived show. It actually only ran 6 episodes in 1974. They have another 7 floating out there that have never been seen. But John Denver sang the theme song to it. It was very popular with critics. But unfortunately, they put it opposite All in the Family and another popular show at the time called Emergency. And so it just never was able to find its footing. But, you have guest stars popping up like Lou Gossett Jr., Pat Hingle, Ed Lauter, David Huddleston. Very interesting. And I just think it's so funny that this is this TV show that Kurt Russell was in that is just living out there.
Just fantastic.
Yeah, I know.
I want to see it.
I do too now.
Did you try to YouTube it?
I didn't.
I found the theme song from 1974's The New Land by John Denver. It's like the opening credits run. So there's that. That's totally going in the show notes.
Nice.
Finn's got some things to tell us about how this thing did an award season. He's beat you to it, Andy.
It was released in 1971, running a little over 3 hours. It was nominated for a Best Foreign Language Movie Oscar in 1972, as well as for Best Picture and 3 other Oscars in 1973, for the 2.5-hour-long American cut. It was released in 1971, running a little over 3 hours. It was nominated for a Best Foreign Language Movie Oscar in 1972, and later in 1973 for Best Picture and 3 other Oscars, that for the 2.5-hour-long American cut. This was the same year as the sequel/continuation, The New Land, was nominated for Best Foreign. A funny thing is that the winner of Best Movie in 1973 was The Godfather, another 3-hour epic about American immigrants from Europe, which got a sequel the next year, half an hour longer, and just as good. Those were the days.
What he didn't point out, Pete, that when it was in fact nominated for Best Foreign Language Film in 1972, it did lose to Vittorio De Sica's The Garden of the Finzi Continis. And in 73, he mentioned that it lost to The Godfather. That was for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, but also to Liza Minnelli for Cabaret. Liv Ullmann lost for Best Actress in a Leading Role. This was actually the 3rd non-English film to be nominated for Best Picture. And I guess to date, I believe there have only been 9 non-English films nominated for Best Picture. This is the 3rd, following Grand Illusion and Z. Do you have any guess what the others are? There are some recent ones.
Well, what was the one with what's his name who jumped all over the chairs?
Yes, that is one of them. Correct. That is
right.
Roberta Benigni.
Roberta Benigni. Bernardo Bertucci.
Right. That is Life is Beautiful. That was 1998. We also have, after this one, actually, the very next year, we had Cries and Whispers from Sweden. And then we had Il Postino, The Postman, which was in Italian and Spanish in 1995. Like you mentioned,
I should have guessed that one.
Life is Beautiful in 98. One you should definitely have mentioned, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon in 2000.
Oh, crying out loud.
Letters from Iwo Jima, which was in 2006. And Amour, which was a pretty recent one back in 2012.
What was Amour? Which one was that?
That was the French film about the husband and wife, and the wife wants to die.
Well, that doesn't sound like Amour.
Is it the husband who wants to die? One of them wants to die. I can't remember now. It's a very difficult, very hard film to watch.
And Finn gives us some final comments.
As a dream is born in darkness, a seed begins to grow. The land provides the shelter, the dream provides the glow. We we have.
For some strange reason, I have never seen The Emigrants myself, even though I might have seen some of it on TV in 1974 while just 5 years old. But now both movies are available on Blu-ray in original cut both in America and Europe. So I have my copy ready now and will watch it as soon as I can get my family to sit down for 3 plus 3.5 hours.
In the space that we call sharing, we will raise a family.
I wonder if he'll actually have had a chance to watch this movie by the time he hears our review of it.
I hope so. One can only hope that he's going to sit down and watch this movie that we just watched to discuss with him, Finn.
I have to say, though, he did the yeoman's work on this essay. It was a real treat to read, and even better, even more of a treat to have Tommy read it to us. So thank you, Finn, for your participation there. This was a great...
Absolutely.
It totally worth seeing, and I'm really glad to have it in the catalog, even if it was a fatiguing experience. How did it do, Andy, in the box office? Do we know?
Well, Troell shot this, like I said, and The New Land back-to-back almost as one film. So it's a bit tricky to give the numbers because a lot of what's actually provided is for really the entire project. For example, the two films together cost 7 million krona to make, at the time the most expensive Swedish film to make. To a certain extent, when the combined length of the two films is around 7 hours, that makes perfect sense. For my simple purposes here, I'll just assume the two films split the budget evenly at 3.5 million krona each, which in US dollars would have been about 678,000, or just over 4 million in today's dollars. That's a great budget to have for such an epic story. And when I say great budget, it's like, that's impressive.
Yeah,
$4 million.
right.
It's like, wow, they got a lot out of that money. The film was released on March 8th in Sweden, where it made almost 20 million krona, making its money back with ease. That's about 3.8 million in 1972 US dollars, or just under $23 million today. The Immigrants played around the world, having a limited release in the US in New York City starting on September 24th, 1972, though the film was reduced from 190 minutes to 150 minutes at the time. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any info on how it did here, but my suspicions are that it had a very limited run, enough to get some award recognition. But hey, it looks like it at least was already financially successful before hitting our shores. With the info I found from its play in its home country alone, the film ended up having an adjusted profit per finished minute of $99,000.
Nice work if you can get it, Andy. I think it's time for us to head over and rank it, don't you think?
Let's do it.
Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel, and or you can just swipe over to the show notes there on your podcast app of choice, and you will see it. It just says Flickchart. Tap on that. It'll take you straight to The Emigrants at flickchart.com, and you can add it to your own list. Let's see how it stacks up against our own.
First up, we have The Emigrants, or Joe versus the Volcano.
Joe versus the Volcano.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm going with Joe. The Emigrants, or The Sandlot.
It's The Sandlot.
I think I got more out of The Emigrants. It's a harder film to watch. The Sandlot is definitely a breeze to watch. But I just really, I just thought the characters were fascinating in The Emigrants. So I'm going with The Emigrants.
All right, let's do it.
All right, ready?
1, 2, 3.
Rock.
Paper. And she falls.
And that's the way it goes sometimes. The Emigrants, or Say Anything.
I'll probably say anything.
Yeah, I think I'm going to say anything here also. The Emigrants, or Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Everybody's favorite Indiana Jones movie.
Wow. I would say The Immigrants.
The Emigrants, definitely. The Emigrants, or Christmas in Connecticut. The Emigrants for me.
The Immigrants for me, too.
The Emigrants, or Murder by Death. Definitely The Emigrants for me.
Really? Okay, Immigrants for me, too. That was the vote of shame.
That's right. The Emigrants, or Stripes. Definitely The Emigrants for me.
No.
Definitely.
No.
I had so many issues with Stripes. Yeah, totally.
You have more issues now just because I'm saying Stripes. This is you just being belligerent.
Absolutely not. No, we're doing it. Yeah. All right, fine.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Get ready.
I think you are forgetting our issues with Stripes, but whatever. That's fine.
Here we go.
All right. 1, 2, 3.
Scissors.
Ha!
Okay. All right. I see your strategy now.
That's right. The Emigrants or Gone with the Wind.
The Emigrants.
The Emigrants, yes. All right. Well, it's dropped pretty low on our chart, but it doesn't mean that it's not a great film. I really enjoyed it. It is a difficult one, but it ended up at 257 on our chart.
Wow.
That's a lot lower than I thought.
Yeah.
It was up against, some tough choices though. But I mean, it's right next to Bull Durham, Say Anything, Gone with the Wind, Stripes. It's in it. There are good things around it.
There are definitely good things around it. It is worth seeing if you're into a certain kind of movie, right? This epic kind of journey drama, family drama. It's definitely something to put in your catalog. I can see how it might be too fatiguing for certain contemporary audiences. I can absolutely see that, and dare say I resemble that remark, but it was worth seeing, and by the end I felt really good having watched it.
Yeah, and it's definitely one that, I watched this and instantly wanted to put on the new land, so I was really impressed with how well they built this story, and it does feel complete, like you feel like you get to a point where it ends, but you still want to journey on with this family and see what happens next.
Really impressive. So thank you very much, Finn, for dropping this in our laps. Congratulations again. Great essay. And what does this do for your Letterboxd ranking? Letterboxd.com/thenextreel.
This is a 4-star film for me. It's certainly something I really enjoyed. It's a very powerful film. It's a difficult film to watch, but it still is 4 stars for me.
Yeah, it's 4 stars for me too. Same reasons. Ditto. Ibid. Where does this go? Where do we go from here? Talk about a context shift.
I know, right? We're going to be jumping into a whole new world. We're going to be joining the Hughes brothers for a few of their films. We're going to be looking at Menace to Society, From Hell, and The Book of Eli, getting a nice little dose of kind of throughout their career. It's going to be an exciting little journey. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one too. Until then, I got to go to bed.
Hey, before you go to bed, will you read to me some from that book about America?
Amazon giveth, Andy.
As Amazon always doeth.
I got a 5-star. I got a 5-star,
goody.
and I just want to celebrate someone who captured the same sentiment that I have when watching this film. This is Daniel. He writes, "Wow, beautiful filming. While telling a story, it is poetry on film. The hardships they had to endure in the old country and the not easy journey to America is what it is all about. The whining crybabies of our time should see this and discover what their ancestors had to go through to get here. The New Land is a sequel and just as good. Look for it. You whining crybabies." There may be some editorializing there on my part.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I got a 3-star from Stephanie, who says, "Have not finished. Fell asleep. Don't watch foreign movies when sleepy. It's too much like reading a book."
Poor Stephanie hasn't read a book in about 18 years.
Oh, Stephanie. Oh, Stephanie.
Thanks, Amazon. It is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
Oh, I know. You're telling me. Producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great conversations.
In Season 6, our Disease Films series had adaptations like The Omega Man, based on I Am Legend, The Andromeda Strain, Children of Men, and Blindness.
I Am Legend is so much better than The Omega Man.
What about the Will Smith version?
Don't get me started.
For our This Is Real Life Jack series, we talked Black Hawk Down and Seabiscuit. Some great true stories based on fantastic books.
And we had more listeners' choices like The Fly, The Emigrants, and Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
You just did a series on The Fly on the Sitting in the Dark podcast. Did you read the original material?
Wasn't watching every Fly movie enough?
Our Big Betty Davis series featured adaptations like The Little Foxes, Now Voyager, All About Eve, and Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Are you calling Betty Davis big?
Only in personality and force.
She is a force to be reckoned with.
We talked about the entire The Godfather trilogy, of course. Iconic page to screen, even if it is just the one Mario Puzo book. Wonder if Coppola will ever make The Sicilian.
We also had some Zhang Yimou adaptations with Judo and Raise the Red Lantern. Absolutely gorgeous movies.
And don't forget the Hughes Brothers series with From Hell, based on the graphic novel. Brilliant material.
Kelly Reichardt gave us Wendy and Lucy and Certain Women, adapted from short stories.
Plus more Hayao Miyazaki as we tackled Howl's Moving Castle.
Find all these books and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every purchase supports the show.
Get the full list of adapted films that we've covered at thenextreel.com/originals and start your next read today.